Everyone, welcome back to another episode of Sofa Kings. Yes, we are back after the most recent tough episode, episode 4. Timur Valiev and Trevor Wells. Man, McGregor can't get any wins at all inside the cage, outside the cage, as a coach, not even as a coach. No, I don't know. We're a third of the way there. I mean, before we even go any further, honestly, I'm joined alongside Steven Shred. I'm a little in awe, honestly, with the episodes, but I don't know. What do you think? We're a third of the way there. If you had to give it a rating, 1 out of 10 from right now, what do you give it?
The show overall or the episode?
Just the show overall. We'll get into the episode.
Honestly, I would give it maybe like a 6. It's not got me heavily invested in like any of the fighters. I feel like a big thing that Tough does is like shows you like, you know, the family, gives a little bit of a sob story, that kind of deal, and like the weird drama they kind of had so far this season feels very like phoned in, kind of fake. So I don't know. I'd give it a 6. The fights are solid though. So we're talking just fights.
Yeah.
Definitely closer to like 8, but
Okay.
show overall, I'd give a 6 because they're not selling me on rooting for any of these dudes right now. How about you?
I don't know. I don't think I'm as impressed as I was in the beginning of the season. I expected a little bit more. I don't know what I'm expecting because it's the same formula we've received for however many seasons, plus 20 something seasons, right?
Yeah.
I am in the same camp as you where I love the fights. I think the fights are amazing. The bantamweights, especially this week, were really fast. It was like they're incredibly quick to their punches, their kicks, and we'll get into that. But I don't like anything else but the fights, and maybe it's just not for me. But we also have the stats that came out saying that they were pulling 230 something thousand viewer ratings. Now that's Nielsen, which is like TV only, right?
Yeah.
So because ESPN Plus, they're not required by law to state how many people are watching the show. We don't actually know if it's just because people are just streaming it now and like we don't really have accurate numbers, or if the show's actually in a decline. But from a viewer perspective, yeah, the antics that are outside of it or whatever. I enjoyed the training sessions. Did you like the thing that happened with Stephen Thompson?
Yeah. I thought he that could have given a little more screen time, as opposed to a ton of screen time dedicated to the weird, like, well, not weird, it's the family stuff. They give us the background, but sometimes it feels like a little unnecessary when we know one of them is about to get like eliminated. So it's just kind of like, maybe give us that narrative somewhere else, because having Wonder Boy on the show, I would have loved to see more of the training and more of the insight he was giving them.
Yeah.
And maybe like some one-on-one, well, depending on where it was in like the actual timeline, because I don't know if it was like day of that fight preparing for that's when he came in.
Mm-hmm.
But it would have been cool to have been like, Wonder Boy is like, oh, okay, you're dealing with this guy, show us more of like some one-on-one stuff. But then I thought it was funny, the whole like, he asked Connor, he's like, oh, are you actually gonna like coach with me today? And he's like, yeah. He's like, oh, you are? Okay, cool. Oh. I thought that was weird
because he wasn't expecting it. He was probably like, oh, I'm probably going to get called in to help coach, and then Connor's going to take off. and that's kind of been like a running theme so far with these first 4 episodes, is that Connor's there when he's there, and even during the weight negotiation, right, when they were discussing the weight class. And they ultimately got it settled at 142, but Connor wasn't even in there for the initial talks, and you can tell that kind of got under Chandler's skin just a little bit, at least from the footage that we saw. I'm sure he's not losing any sleep over it, but I'm sure right then and there kind of messed with him.
And that's got to be annoying.
Yeah, and you got to remember that this is filmed, a little bit while back now, and with everything that's coming out, with Connor not being able to fight, he's not in the USADA testing pool. I'm gonna sneeze right now. I'm trying to fight this like runny nose stuff. Nose, that sucks. Um,
Yep.
but honestly, yeah, he just hasn't been present for a lot of the fighter stuff, and um, I think it might show. I don't know. Maybe Chandler just has better fighters. Um, you know, in the vets. Maybe he's just a better coach. I don't know, but
It is definitely strange that we're fed this kind of narrative that it is prospects versus veterans. But then when you actually take a look at their stats and their ages, they are very close. So we're not dealing with like super young guys versus older dudes who've been at it.
yeah,
We're dealing with like people that are of similar age, but the veterans have been in the UFC and the prospects haven't. That seems to be the real difference.
and yeah, and that seems to be. I don't know if it's because they know what they had and they want it back that much. I mean, I don't know because it's not like we haven't seen good fights. I mean, the last two fights, okay, Austin Hubbard and I'm blanking on the other, and Aaron McKenzie, right? That was a
Mhm.
good fight that ended up in a decision, and then we had this week, which ended up in a decision after only 2 rounds.
Yep.
So it's not like, and what, the first 2 weeks were knockouts, like just kind of like quick first round knockouts. So it's like, oh, okay, this is like a
Yeah.
really fast intro into the into the season. I think we still have plenty of good fights. We have Brad Katona next week, taking on, who's he taking on? Carlos Vera.
Yep.
So let's get straight into the fight between Timur Valiev and Trevor Wells, because honestly, this is my favorite fight of the season so far. What did you think of Connor asking for a third?
I thought it was unwarranted. It's like that. I think that was just Connor's competitive nature because it did
Yeah,
seem at the end of the second that Tamura was getting a little sloppy. Maybe he was getting a little tired because he threw like a kick that had no power behind it. He threw a weird spinning punch that had zero behind it. So last minute, like it really seemed like he was starting to gas out. It could have just been that he was just like coasting because he knew he won the fight, but maybe Connor saw that and was like, if we get the third, I think he gets the finish. But
yeah, yeah.
I don't think it needed the third at all. Like as far as just judging off of the two, which they do for the Ultimate Fighter. Yeah. What
I
about
think
you?
I think if it went to a third, Timur still would have just gotten him to the ground. Um, Even though in the first round, Trevor Wells was doing a really good job of getting out of the takedown, so he wouldn't just sit and accept the position. He'd get up immediately. He'd pop up. They ended up in that, like, where he was kind of backpacked on him with the figure four lock.
Yeah.
And they went to Dana, and he's like, yeah, it does suck for Timur more than it does Trevor Wells. And yeah, that's true to an extent. But I mean, both of these guys are going to have to wear weight in different places. You know what I mean? I think Trevor Wells was doing okay. I don't think he was finding he wasn't finding contact at the end of the punch. So he would get the jab working, which is really well, and then his uppercut or his like looping hooks just weren't there. And anyone who's ever thrown a punch, when you miss, you're more exhausted than when you actually make contact, right? Because now you have to travel more distance to get back and everything like that. But overall, yeah, I was okay with the 2 rounds, at the decision for this format. However, if this was a real fight, yeah, I mean, I can see a competitive third round. Timur Valiev was getting tired ish. I think he would have recovered a little bit.
Yeah, definitely that possibility. But as far as like Connor maybe seeing a chance that he gets, a win for his team, I think that's what he was going for.
Yeah,
I don't see it though because Timur just seems stronger. The explosiveness and his ability to get out of situations for Wells, worked in the first round. Second round, it didn't.
yeah,
Like he was just taking it, and anytime he would try to explode and get out or try to maneuver, he would just get caught again. So I think that would have just continued in the third round.
yeah. That's a great call. I honestly, I know both of these guys kind of liked each other going into it. Like they only showed like the one clip of them talking, but they were there for a while talking about each other and stuff like that, and probably just, I mean, that I think that's what makes it interesting. Is like, yeah, you force these guys to kind of talk to each other, but at the same time, like when it's a group of guys that know what the show is and they understand, especially in today's landscape, that like one clip and you can be the let me bang, bro. So
Yeah.
maybe they're not really trying to become a clip. I don't see as many guys that are like that. I know we have some, I guess, potential drama next week with Brad Katona.
Yeah, that looks a little phoned in, just because we're literally not seeing anything, and then all of a sudden they're showing us an entire episode of him being a diva. So I'm kind of like how much of this is like
Yeah,
scripted?
there's not. You know what? I think that's the best point right there. Is we're not seeing the other fighters in these episodes like that. Like we're not seeing interactions. We're not seeing what really gets them going in the house. And that kind of sucks because the whole point of this show is to put more eyes on these fighters so when they go to other places they have an audience, but now it just kind of seems like the whole thing is about the UFC brand itself because you see a lot of shots of the UFC of the Apex Center, right? In Performance Institute. You see a lot of UFC branding in almost every single shot that they do.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, remember this fighter? Hey, you know this guy, right?
Yeah,
And
it seems like they took a lot of the fun out too. There used to be like,
the
coach with
competitions.
coach competitions. Yeah,
Yeah.
like all these different things that would just kind of like bring the camaraderie between teams. Like, yeah, it's our team versus their team, but we're gonna have a fun little water balloon fight or something like that.
Yeah.
It was always that mixed in with a lot of the home life, like not home as in their home, but home as in the tough house.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we have all these classic moments from like the earlier ones. And it just seems like none of that's there. So I 100% agree with your point. It just seems like it's all about the brand. They're like, these are our guys. Oh, you want the best striking in the world? Guess what? UFC's got them, bringing in Wonder Boy. You want some wrestling? We got Islam coming in. It's all about like UFC's got it,
Yeah.
as opposed to here's a fun show. We're gonna try to cool format, and maybe you guys dig it, and let the fighters shine. Doesn't really seem like that's the case anymore.
Yeah, I think because anytime Connor's like on screen, it feels like he kind of takes up the space, and maybe he's either too big for the show or just there's nothing else that's really happening inside of that house that's really TV worthy. And that's honestly what it could be. It could literally just be like, damn, we got a group of guys that are responsible. What do they do when they get to the house? They
Yeah,
work out, they eat, and they probably read a book or something because they don't have contact with their families. Not like that, you know.
yeah. Like
So
the last time I seriously watched the Ultimate Fighter was Ortega and Volkanovski, and that was just gold because like Ortega is such like a chill, calm demeanor guy, and Volkanovski is just pranking them and doing all this like insane stuff. Like he plastered what was it? Him like photos of himself all over the room, and then
yeah,
he was like sitting at the top in a speedo. It's like you don't have those kind of personalities with Chandler and McGregor.
yeah,
So it could just be that nothing was really TV worthy, so they just had to make some stuff.
yeah. It definitely feels like they're reaching this season, and I don't know how much longer they can continue doing this, but it also feels like they're filling a quota. Like, oh, the ESPN wants this many shows. We promised them this much airtime. Here's a show, right?
Yeah,
But I don't know. I mean, this is obviously something the UFC is funding. I don't think I mean, maybe ESPN puts in. I don't know. I really don't know when it comes to like the finances on that end. But
yeah,
I can't imagine that this show is doing better than when it first hit the air. When you have Rampage punching a door. I
yeah. You have the "I can't let you get close" moment.
one of the greatest, and then he like as he takes him down, you just hear him mutter, "Fucking amateur." Like, so I don't know. Like, I don't. We have how many more episodes left?
So we got 7 more episodes, I believe,
7.
or 8 more.
Okay. Uh, yeah, you know, um, I think the only thing saving me and keeping me coming back are the fights right now. Like I just want to
Yeah.
watch fights. Um, I like you obviously recognize some of these names just because of them being UFC vets and seeing them on some of the undercards, and I
Yep.
I I don't know. I would have to say overall though the fights have been. I mean, this fight in general, I think was like a nice 8.5 out of 10. The show itself, I mean, I'm kind of slugging through it, so maybe a 5. You know, like
Yeah.
it's not
Honestly,
maybe a
like it's getting
4.
to the point. Yeah, it's getting to the point where I'm honestly just thinking of just like fast forwarding until I see the fight.
Oh man, no, then you can't do your job with me.
Yeah,
That'll
exactly.
be
That's
like,
why
hey,
I'm
so
like,
what do you
I
think of
can't.
this? I don't know, man. I watched the fight. If I'm being real, now yeah, I don't know, man. There's so much else I would rather watch with it, and I don't know who's making that decision to put specific things on screen. Maybe they're just not working with enough, right? They really just don't have that much. But the training, man, I want to see the training then. Like that, if that's going to be the next coolest thing, because if you really are going to do that, then you have to go all in. You can't just be like, here's like 2 minutes of a family segment. Here's them training for a couple seconds. Here's another 2 minute family segment. Oh, here's some B-roll of the Performance Institute, and we're at the fight. Okay,
Yeah.
like
It definitely feels like an old school format too, because you could see where the commercial breaks are and everything.
yeah.
So I think that takes away from it even
Well, they're
more. So
shooting for ESPN, like that, like it airs on ESPN.
yeah, but I mean, like the idea that like we got to cramp this in like an 8 minute segment, then it's a commercial break, and now we got a new like 9 minute segment, and now we're gonna do the fight. Now we're gonna cut here, and we're gonna do the ending part. Like it feels very formulaic in the way that it's laid out, and it just makes it feel like more of a grind to watch.
Mm. So, okay, so if you're asking for a format shift, what would you?
I would go for a more natural thing. We get an introduction, we talk about the fights that are happening that day. We get the lead up to it, we get a little backstory mixed into the training as opposed to its own segment. So, we're watching this guy train. As that happens, we get the voiceover, we get the background on them, but we're still watching training in between.
Yeah.
And then, cuts to the other guy, similar thing. He talks about his background, we see the training, everything's intermixed as opposed to training, home life, fight preparation, drama, fight. Like I would love that kind of format that feels a little more natural as opposed to, just blocking everything off. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I don't know. Am I crazy?
I I would say that what they're doing is just industry standard, and it's whether it detracts from it. It's I'm not gonna say it's besides the point because obviously, like you have a critique that you think is like almost borderline ruining the show for you, right? So much so to the that you're just like, screw this. If I'm streaming it, if I'm not watching it on cable TV, I'll just skip to the fight anyways. Like that's the part I want to see as a fight fan, right? That's the thing that ultimately we're already fight fans, right? When the show came out, it wasn't for fight fans. It was for everyone else because storytelling just resonates so much more.
Yeah, and then reality TV was huge at that time too.
Yeah, yeah. You had all the Jersey Shores. The Was that a 210 reality show? Was that an actual show? I don't know. I didn't watch. I don't know, but you know what I mean. Real Housewives type shit. It's the Kardashians. Well,
Every
they might have been a
skateboarder
little
got
bit
their
after.
own reality show at that point. Yeah,
Bam
dude.
Margera, yeah.
Yeah, dude. That was the thing back then.
And it's for us now where we're like, well, we're tuning in every weekend to watch the fights anyways. It's kind of like we don't want the fluff, but if someone else were to come in, right, and watch the fights, they're going to be more connected to the story and they're going to be like, "Oh my god, they have like they're going to be like, I never even thought about their families and stuff like that. I just thought about, grown sweaty men hugging and punching each other." You like that's what, that's someone else's image, but to us on the inside it's like fight.
Yeah.
So I that's all I gotta say about that. No, but if you guys agree with us, if you don't, let us know in the comments. And as always, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell for more, because all we want to do is make more MMA content, theories, predictions, reviews. We have some more segments coming up, and we do have some fights this weekend.
Yep.
Let's take a look at the main card here coming up. So on the 24th, we have Josh Emmett taking on Ilia Topuria. That's going to be the featherweight main event. We also have Amanda Hebos taking on Macy Barber, in which Steven does have a hate boner for Macy Barber. He thinks that all of her decisions are terrible.
Not all. 2 of them for sure, though.
His words. No, I'm just kidding. Austin Lane taking on Justin Taffa. That's going to be an okay heavyweight fight. Brendan Allen versus Bruno Silva. That's going to be okay. Who else do we have? Neil Magny taking on Philip Rowe. I can't believe that's on the prelims, but that's the main event of the prelims. So, okay, fair enough. Randy Brown versus Wellington Turman. That's going to be a good, decent one. Other names that I recognize, Zalgis Zumagulov is taking on Joshua Van. Joshua Van might probably take that. I don't think Zumagulov is as good as... Yeah, I don't think he's that good. Who else? Trevor Peak, Cody Brundage. So there's some names, but they're not exactly going to be household names. Overall, Josh Emmett, Ilia Topuria, I don't see that fight going to the scorecards at all. I see that being a knockout, man.
Yeah, same.
So
that's going to be a banger of a fight.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we can get you guys a prediction video for that. I actually have a video shoot to go do. I'm going to be a diva today.
That's me.
I know you can't see the edits, but I'm just going, pat. No, I'm just kidding. So another week, another fight, and another time, Team Chandler gets the win. Brad Katona getting the victory over Carlos Vera in what I thought was a very dominant victory. We'll get into that. Steven, how you doing today, man?
Doing pretty good, man. It is it's getting hot over here in Southern California. I'm sure, as you know, it's probably hotter over there than it is over here.
Yeah. I live a little bit more inland, and it's brutal. We run the AC all the time. Doesn't help the bill, the electric bill, but whatever. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's oh man, I don't know. I watched the episode today. I totally forgot about it last night. I just
Same.
And honestly, okay, here's my thing. I don't know. I feel just bored with the show until we get to the fight, you know?
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Like if you're watching something good, if you're interested in it, there's a sense of urgency. Like, oh, new episode. Hell yeah, let's jump on that. There's shows that I'll watch. They premiere at like midnight the day before, and I'll watch it then. Ultimate Fighter is not one of those shows right now.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Even with what they drummed up this week with the drama between Brad Katona and his allegiancy and the other fighters getting a little fed up with him and his diva-esqueness. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see a whole lot of it in the episode, and the one thing that they used to like highlight it didn't seem unreasonable. He just wanted to go over tape ahead of time and kind of, have practices a little closer to what he felt comfortable with, which sure, it kind of takes away from Chandler's ideas and everything, but at the end of the day, it is a competition. If he feels a little more comfortable with that, I don't see that as a completely unreasonable thing. And watching tape ahead of time so he could really lock in what he's going to be up against didn't seem unreasonable. I don't know. What'd you think? Am I crazy?
A little, only because I say this. You got to understand the context of this too. Just as much as we need to understand the context for him, he's got to understand the context of Chandler, where he's at. He's not just watching his tape. It's not just his fight camp, right?
Yeah.
And like, I get it. Like, Brad's like, I've done this already. Like, I don't need to be anyone's friend, including my own teammates. Like, I'm here to do what I need to do. And I honestly expected a bit of that coming from him.
Yeah.
Now, there were a lot of opinions about this episode online, particularly the fight. So, I mean, I just want to get straight into the fight real quick.
Let's do this.
A lot of people thought, and I kept seeing the same thing, that Brad Katona was boring throughout the entire fight. He was active on top. It might not have been like what everyone wants to see and constant, but he was going after finishes. At one point, he had a decent okay catch with a rear naked choke.
Yep.
There were sweeps from Carlos Vera. I think just the way how the episode might have been framed, people might have just been like, I don't like that guy anymore. You know, as opposed to like what the fight actually was, and it was a dominant 2 rounds.
Not to mention the Connor thing,
Yes.
with Connor being highlighted and the camera's on him, and he says he's not being active. Stand him up, ref. Like that.
That's him just fighting for his guy, kind of thing. Where it's like,
yeah,
he's got.
But as a viewer, you're like, oh,
like,
Connor's right. He's not doing anything. He's like, he's doing stuff.
I would hope that majority of people would have the opinion that Brad. It was a pretty dominant fight. I think that Brad didn't want to stand there with Carlos Vera. Carlos could have potentially had some good combinations on the feet. You can tell that he was ready to kind of keep things on the outside and poke around. I did not like the game plan from Connor, the stick on the outside and do that. Brad has high level wrestling or grappling, to say the least. He can get the takedown when he needs it. He's very strong. You know, even though he didn't want to do the wrestling, he's like, he thought he would rather do cardio, whatever the hell that was.
Yeah.
The game plan shouldn't have been, try to stick on the outside, because realistically, the game plan should have been like, find sense of urgency from the bottom, get back up. Because there was a couple times where he just accepted the position, and that's what cost him the round.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there was, I mean, Connor's calling for the stand up and everything, and sure, he just wants the better opportunity for his guy, but it's like, it was super dominant from Katona. The striking definitely favored Vera in certain situations. Like, it felt like he was getting the harder hits in some of the combinations, but then of course you get the going against a grappler syndrome, where you get a little iffy on throwing certain strikes, because then it's like, you open yourself up to the takedown. But yeah, it just seemed like he was biding his time a little more, talking about Vera.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't work out for him. He got a couple good reversals, but then they just kind of didn't go anywhere. And at the end of the first round, I thought he could have ended really strong and maybe taken the round back if he really started getting into it with some combinations, because I believe there was 20 seconds left on the clock. Katona wasn't fully in defensive mode. Like, he got a couple hits in. He could have followed it up, really just put a stamp on the end, and instead he just kind of backed up, through like one kick, and that was that. So, I
don't think he would have won that first round. Here's the thing. So with that first round, he would have had to have like knocked him. Like, it would have had to have been significant enough, and even then that's tough, because Brad controlled for like well over 3.5 minutes each round. Like, that's a lot of control time. That's a lot of you not being able to do anything you want to do and me being safe. There were a couple like pot shots like over the top, right, where he was like looking kind of behind him and would just throw the punch, like when Brad was on his back. And like, yeah, okay, like those are punches. They're technically scoring, but they're more annoying than anything. They're not. There's no threat behind it. I don't know. There's just not a lot of power you can generate from that position. I know a lot of people starting to see like punches from the bottom as maybe a beneficial thing, especially with people like Kevin Holland when he knocked out Jacare Souza. But that's a totally different angle of where he's able to draw that power from. he's got very long, lanky arms. Like he's gonna generate power at the end of it. Whereas Carlos Vera is kind of a short stock, not stocky, but pretty pretty bulky nonetheless, right? They both had some decent muscle mass on them.
And both of them were the same height, and I believe reach was very similar too. So
here's the thing. I think their styles could have made for a better fight. However, we're getting to the point where you really have to actually ask the question: is Conor just a bad coach? Like, is that the actual difference between him going 0-5 versus Chandler, who's doing? You would, from what it looks like, he's very involved. He's studying tape constantly with his team. Is Conor studying tape for these guys, or is he out dealing with his business ventures, the things that make him money, right?
Yeah, like even the whole like diva thing with with Katona, that wouldn't be a thing on Conor's team because Conor wouldn't even be there to talk to them about it. It's like the idea that Chandler is having an issue with the way that Katona is responding to his game plan and the way he's like scheduling everything out. It wouldn't happen on Team McGregor because McGregor wouldn't be there for it. He kind of lets his coaches handle it, which I thought it was kind of weird that like the 2 times we see Conor actually in there, he's talking to Vera about his capoeira background and just being like, yeah, you got to get in there. We got to do this. And like, not a whole lot of like really, really helpful stuff. And then the other thing was just they were doing the row machine, which, that was something, I guess.
So that felt like he showed up for a workout, talked to the guys through a workout, and then was gone. Like, I don't know if that was like he was there for like all of like 30 minutes to an hour. Because how long was each rowing session? A minute? Okay, a minute 38 was best time, right? Conor got, and that was with Aaron McKenzie, and then McGregor got a 140, right? Okay, let's say the slowest guy there gets sub 3 minutes. I don't know how far they're going, but sub 3 minutes, right?
Yeah.
How long are you there for your guys? 8 guys? What's 8 times 3?
8 times 3, 24.
Less than 30 minutes?
Yep.
I mean, maybe 5-10 minutes to say, hey, what's up? And then to leave. Like,
yeah. I mean, he walked out pretty quickly after it was all done. So after he was done with his workout thing, he was out.
Yeah. I mean, say what you want, and Chandler and Katona, they weren't necessarily arguing about the training, but you can tell both of them wanted to implement a game plan. And both of them were just kind of like, we know what it is, but this is still fucking annoying. Like, you can't you can't tell me that they both weren't kind of being catty bitches in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of talking over each other.
Like, I was like, Jesus, this is like, I don't know. Like, when I think of the Ultimate Fighter, I don't think of like catty bitches. I don't know. Like, I don't know, man. It's just one of those things where had they focused on things like training, like we said last week, right? With Stephen Thompson, that would be cool. Okay, hey, you want Conor to come in for a challenge, like for a thing? Okay, have both coaches do it.
Yeah.
Have the teams do it. Have them go through. They're already training, right? You can afford to do 1 or 2 athletic challenges in the show's runtime. It's only 2 out of the 12 weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah, just some quick little obstacle course, like whatever, just something.
The guys can get hurt. Yeah, they can get hurt fighting too. Some of these guys can get hurt.
Training.
They can get hurt training. They can get hurt drinking and doing stupid shit at the house. Now, there seems to be a lot more maturity among fighters now, and I think that's just because of the age that we're in. And I keep talking about it, but the age that we're in is everyone has their phones out. Any moment you can become viral, whether it's good reason or a bad reason, right? And it can be super random. And I think these guys know that. They don't want to become a Let Me Bang Bro, a Julian Lane, right?
Which is fair.
because now he's kind of, I don't know. I'm just not particularly having a great time watching The Ultimate Fighter. I'm more so just like, I want to watch the fight, but I do want to like talk. I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
I got to make the content. You know what I mean? Like,
it's not a whole lot of substance besides the fight. Yeah, the only thing that does have me a little curious was what they're talking about with Katona's losses. So the only two losses he has, Marab, which we all know Marab.
Yeah.
And then Hunter Azur, another guy on the Ultimate Fighter this season.
Yeah.
Who is on Chandler's team. So if the trend continues, it could be interesting to see
them fight each other.
That rematch. Yeah, because Katona was saying he didn't agree with the decision, which I haven't gone and watched it myself. But, maybe Brad gets a chance to get that win back, or Azur gets to say, that's it. I beat you twice now.
Yeah, and that would put a stamp on things. I know that this show is going to become a non-team thing pretty soon here, but
yeah, we already have two teammates going against each other. We got Cody Gibson and Timur going up against each other in the semifinals already. So this race shaping up where we're gonna have teammate versus teammate.
Yeah, I mean, and why not? These guys are winning. Yeah, you want to see who the Ultimate Fighter is, right? And that's where we're at. We just want to see the Ultimate Fighter at this point. If the show gave us more than just like you'll do as you're told, like that seems to be the highlight of the entire season, and that was just wasted in the first like 15-20 minutes of the show.
Yeah, and then on top of all of that, we have the news, which I believed we talked about before, of Connor not making it to the deadline for USADA. So now there's no Chandler McGregor fight, so we don't even get the usual treat at the end of all of this where the coaches have been trash talking each other the entire time, and now they get to fight. We don't get that. So it takes away even more for me because I'm just like, well, what the hell is all this about then anyways? It's like when McGregor was on against why can't I think of his name right now? When they had the what was it? Like UK versus US, and McGregor was one coach.
Was it
Alpha Male?
Oh, not Dominic Cruz. Not Alpha Male. Fucking. Oh my God, what's his name? TJ?
No. TJ was on the team. God, why can't
Cody?
I?
No. Yeah, was it? Who the fuck was it?
You're right, favorite. Jesus Christ!
Wow.
Yeah,
we're terrible, dude.
Yeah, we should go to jail for that.
Oh well. All right.
So the whole idea of Connor and Uriah just trash talking each other, which it was definitely on the more fun side. It wasn't like Uriah was taking it super harshly or anything. They're having a good time. But the idea that like coaches are just not gonna fight, which different weight classes and such, but still it stands like
I think if it's any other set of coaches, they fight. Any other set of coaches. Now I believe this has happened though, where tough coaches didn't fight at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. It has, but it's still with little to no substance on the tough house. These fights not always living up to it, and then the coaching sessions being kind of meh.
Yeah.
It just takes even more away from it. I don't know. Do you feel that at all?
I think it's because we've gotten maybe an even lesser version of tough. I don't know if the trash reality TV side of what we came to know about The Ultimate Fighter is what we like. You know what I mean? I would imagine as an MMA fan and as other MMA fans, and I can't speak for other people, but if I'm watching for the fighters, I want to know who's the tougher guy, who's a stronger guy, more athletic, whatever. Because that information kind of bases my opinions on the fighters, whether I like them, whether I want to see them in the UFC, or whether or not I want to see them in other organizations. But the problem is, the UFC gains nothing. They gain nothing from raising these fighters' names unless they do something crazy, right? In which they know a guy where they're like, yeah, that guy's going to be in the UFC for sure. So let's get him going. But if it's a guy where they're like, they're not going to give you much time. Have they given any time to the guys that have lost already?
Not really. I mean, the most we've seen is like, Aaron McKenzie winning the little rowing competition. Pretty much it.
You know what I mean? I get that they have maybe a lot to go through, but I don't know. I don't know if we need a different season format, if they need to do something different, but it's just not the same. It doesn't feel I don't know. It doesn't feel like something I think you can get casual people into.
Yeah, like at this point, and of course, it's always gonna be a little more entertaining because of the fact that we know who all the fighters are. But man, I would much rather watch an hour of UFC embedded than The Ultimate Fighter. Like UFC embedded, just it has the entertainment value, has a little training, but you get to see the fighters and their lives and do all that stuff. And of course, it's named fighters who are going to be fighting at the end of the week. But man, the Ultimate Fighter just feels like a grind. It's like you said, we don't get to see the fighters. Like, we were talking about PFL last week, had Maurice Green, a guy that I have not liked since he was on the Ultimate Fighter, because we got to see that.
Mm-hmm.
He was getting drunk, making an idiot of himself, saying all this dumb stuff in the house, and because of that, because of the whole tough house experience thing, I don't like him. You don't get any.
I don't like him.
I don't. Every time that guy goes up, I'm like, oh man, I hope you get knocked out. But we don't get any of that. We don't get any time with the fighters, so we don't get the I'm rooting for this guy. We get the little, background spiel in the episode, like 10, 15 minutes before they fight, and it's pretty much it. We don't get to live in it. And then, of course, you get the always feels very produced, like, conversations between fighters, which, are kind of whatever. But, yeah, just really mad about the season so far.
What feels overproduced to you?
A lot of the randomly bringing up like their families and stuff like that. Like it doesn't feel like these guys are actually sitting talking to each other, asking each other about their lives and their families. It feels like, hey, since you guys are right here, do you think we could get this? Ask him a question, then we'll film. Go. It doesn't feel natural. It feels like we're watching a very produced, very cleanly put together show that happens to have fighting in it. I don't know. Am I crazy in thinking that?
I do not know. I think that is a great question for those who are watching this video. We want to thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If you disagree with Steven, let him know in the comments. Give him hell. I think he can take it. I think he's fine. For Steven, Shred, and I, we want to thank you so much, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
See you.